Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. I am Jim Wendler, the author and creator of 531, and today we are doing our usual live stream. We only have a few questions to start with, so if anyone has a question who is watching, and even if you can't watch all the way through, just go ahead and ask a question wherever they were there for me. And you can watch it later. I am not training today. I took the day off, so I'm pretty happy. Super happy. Because now I don't have to get all sweaty and take about a million showers. As always, today at London, we are doing the Prowler after we lift. And it's a beautiful day. We've had some great weather. So I'm super pumped up about that. And believe it or not, the Prowler is a kind of a love-hate thing. I guess you can believe it at London. I think it's one of the big things that we do that separate us from other teams. The kids take great pride in suffering through the Prowler, and they actually have a good time. There's a ton of crap talking and shit talking and all that good stuff. So anyway, I'm just super proud of how the kids have trained this off season. I think from my point of view, I think I've done a little better job. And I think every off season has built on the others, if I'm going to be honest. And we've tried a couple of little twists here and there, but the basics remain the same. And anyway, all right, let's go ahead and get started and go ahead and ask your questions. And here we go. Jeff Mullis. Jim, I am enjoying the Prowler as much as I can. That's true. I met the first training goal that's posted in the Forever book, and I'm starting on the second one tomorrow. It feels good to re-engage with that mental fight while training. Thanks for promoting that aspect of training. I feel like I've become too fixated on chasing numbers and lifting. I totally get this. And so it's refreshing to get outside of the comfort zone and challenge myself mentally. Jeff, I couldn't agree with you more. There's something special about doing hard training or hard conditioning, I should say, especially if you've been centered on the weight room too long. I think there is, and obviously one of the, lifting weights and stuff still challenges you physically and mentally, but I don't think anything comes close to having difficult, challenging, grinding, conditioning challenges, or even workouts, just general workouts. I think that there is something to that lifting can't really tap into. There is a misery, and it's very much a prolonged misery, especially if you're doing like a Prowler workout, which generally is fairly short, but it can also be pretty long too, I guess, if you set out for, pushing the Prowler for a mile or something like that, which we've done. But I would encourage everyone, if possible, to keep their conditioning at least in their program. And it doesn't mean their daily or weekly conditioning has to be horrible, but I would really recommend occasionally doing some kind of challenges. I don't know. I'd like to say at least every 4 weeks, every month, maybe every 6 weeks, unless you're training for something specific that this would ruin. But one of the things that I like to do with the conditioning is I don't really set a goal as generally like I want to finish this in this time. It's usually I just got to finish this. And the act of finishing the conditioning challenge is miserable in enough in itself. And I know I'll push hard enough, regardless if I have the end goal at the time. For example, about a year and a half ago, I did the what I call the 12-mile old man ranger test, which is put on a 20-pound vest and you walk 12 miles. And the day that I chose to do that was about 30 degrees, and it was mixed between rain and snow. And I walked around the town of London, and I had a giant beard at the time, and it was just a giant ice ball at the end. I probably looked like I was nuts. And it was a miserable time. I had all kinds of ankle and knee things that popped up and then went away. It was very funny. But that, to me, that was one of the most memorable things I've done in the last 20 years, if I'm going to be honest. It was horrible, and I loved every minute of it. So I would really encourage anyone who maybe has left out some kind of conditioning to bring it back. And you will see you'll have some mental and obviously physical changes that happen. So highly recommended, Jeff. I hope you enjoy it. And don't be afraid, Jeff, to expand your Prowler challenges to something that's dumb. For example, we do a Prowler marathon, which is a half mile. We don't do it all at once. You push it for X amount and then take a break. And then, so anyway, don't, but again, maybe you can try like a weight vest challenge for walking, or you can do like an Airdyne challenge, stuff like that. So keep it in, have some fun. All right. Caribbean Dreamer says, I am new on the forum. Unfortunately, you don't write in detail how the kids warm up. Yes, I do. But may I ask you please to write down exactly which exercises and how many sets and reps are done as the pre-practice warm-up. All right. So the reason why I don't write for specifically that stuff is because there is nothing specific. Everything is based on the kids choosing what to do. So we give them a long list of exercises, and everyone's going to have, some kids are going to be stronger than others. And so they'll obviously do more reps. Some kids will be in better shape than others. Some kids will feel better. But the bottom line is we always do some kind of upper back exercise. And that could be face pulls, band pull aparts, rear raises, Superman raises on the incline bench. They can theoretically do dumbbell shrugs, but I don't really see many kids doing those. And we also do any kind of abdominal work. And that would include lying leg raises, hanging leg raises, straight leg raises, ab wheel. The kids love doing the ab wheel, and doing weighted sit-ups. And then we also do, the third exercise we do is pull-ups and chin-ups with a variety of different grips. The kids are expected to get at least 50 reps of upper back and 50 reps of any abdominal work, and then as many pull-ups as they can. So that's how we do it. But again, I want the kids to have some kind of control and autonomy on their training, since pretty much I tell them what to do, especially on all the barbell work. I decide all the reps, I decide all the weight, all that stuff. So this gives the kids some ownership in what they do. And again, there's nothing specific. They're supposed to get up to the weight room right after school, and some of them will be in there for 30 minutes doing a whole bunch of stuff. Some kids, because they're farting around, or maybe they have some kind of academic requirement, they may be only in there for 10 minutes. So again, some kids do a million stuff, and it just depends on what they have going on for that day. So that's the basic pre-practice warm-up. All right, John Donovan, good to see you, buddy. Says, why would I waste wiping a perfectly good burger on a public wall when I can eat it? Well, John, that's just being selfish, buddy. Sometimes boogers are so amazing that you need to share them with the world. So don't be such a selfish prick, John Donovan. Anyway, good to see you, buddy. I hope things are well. All right. Jurgen Bavalar. Bavalar? Man, Jurgen. I don't know. Says, Jim, I tried it before, but I like to know what you think. Can you do all templates in forever 2 days a week? Thank you for all the Q&As. Well, I appreciate it, and I apologize, Jurgen, for butchering your name. If you could comment later, tell me where you are from, because I'd love to know. Anyway, can you do all templates in forever 2 days a week? The answer is no, because some are just designed to be 3 or 4 days a week. Now, there's things that you can take and inspire to do a 2-day template, and you'd have to kind of take. Obviously, you're going to have to leave some things out. I don't want everyone cramming stuff into a workout. As an example, if we, during the off-season, London, can only train twice a week, we don't cram all 3 days of work into those 2 days. We just leave out one of those days. I don't think it's a good idea to try to make up for lost time. I just think you should do what you usually do and do it perfectly. So the answer is no, I don't think, unless you modify stuff and then understand the spirit and the purpose of the training and what we are trying to do, then I think you could use it as a, like I said, an inspiration to go from a 3-day to a 2-day week. So there you go. Ben asks, what are your favorite leader templates? I'm in an anchor cycle right now, and I would like to try something other than 5s Pro and FSL during my next leader cycle. All right, so Ben, a lot of it depends on where you want to end up. So as an example, if you want to run a counterplay to the right, your first step has to be perfect, or you're going to go in an opposite direction. So you kind of need to know where you are going before you take that first step. So again, your anchor will be largely dependent on what your leader cycle would be. My personal favorites would be switching to 3-5-1. Okay. Doing PR, this is the leader cycle, I should say. Switching to 3-5-1, doing PR sets on the third and first, on the 3x3 and the 5-3-1 week, and on the 3x5 week. So the middle week, you would just do the requisite reps, so just 5 reps. I would probably choose some kind of FSL for each lift, but I would not do. So if I was going to bench, I wouldn't just bench. I would do something else like floor press and then obviously on the press day, you would choose something else. Could be incline or something, but it would be very low volume, generally speaking, on that. And then I would just kick ass on the assistance after that. So again, main lift, we switched to 3-5-1. So instead of, hit PR sets on the 3x3 and 5-3-1 week, your first set last stuff or your supplemental work will be a different exercise. I would probably on my squat day choose a safety squat bar above parallel box squats or something like that. On your deadlift day, you could choose rack pulls or anything like that. So you can kind of have some fun and vary that stuff. So, and then obviously you'd follow it up with whatever assistance work that you need. That would be what I would do for probably my favorite leader stuff. Josh Hayes says, how do you have the kids use the Prowler? How far? How much weight do they put on it? Reps? Or is all this info is on the forum? It's always on the forum. You probably have to search for it because I've been asked this question a bunch of times. How do you have the kids use the Prowler? We use the Prowler generally 1 day a week. And every group, we've accumulated a lot of Prowlers over the years, but it's taken some time. So we've had to, adjust, obviously. I think each Prowler has 3 to 4 kids, no more than 4 kids per Prowler. Each Prowler sprint is done for 20 yards. Everything is done on a timer. So once the kid gets finished and the nose of the Prowler goes over 20 yards, the group has to get together and push the Prowler behind the next line that they push to, if that makes sense. So they all have to work together. And again, the rest periods are dependent on where we are during the season and all that stuff. The weight will vary greatly on the Prowler depending on the group. But generally, and it depends on the surface you push it on, and it also depends on the weather on that specific surface. For example, when it rains on asphalt or concrete, a lot of times it gets harder. When it rains on the artificial turf at London, it gets easier. So we will have to adjust those things. It depends on the humidity too. That changes stuff. But generally speaking, it can go anywhere from everyone has to at least do a 45-pound plate on each side, and then sometimes be a 45 and a 25, and then some groups can be able to do 2 45s on each side. But again, the weight that you do is going to be dependent on obviously how in shape the kids are. As always, start very light. It also depends on how far you push. And so the total amount, usually I think each kid at the very least will do again, if this is when they're just kind of getting back into the Prowler. So we start the Prowler immediately the first week after the season is over. So we're starting very soon after the season. So I think they'll probably do no more than 12 20-yard pushes. Eventually we'll work that up to about 20 to 24. But that takes time. So there you go. Broken Tree says, having never trained my neck directly, what's a good way to start with a neck harness, sets, rep, etc.? Sorry for the Okay, I see what your Slater rules. Okay. So if you're going to start with a neck harness, I would probably start with like a 10-pound plate on there. Start incredibly light, because the amount of soreness and headaches you'll get, especially when you go to bed that night, is going to be horrible. So what I would probably do is the first 2 weeks or so, I'd probably train her 2 to 3 times a week. It doesn't have to be very heavy, again, a 10. And I would probably do 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps, somewhere in there, and just have a big full range of motion. Don't just, nod your head. I always try to touch my chin to my chest and reach all the way up. And I, with the neck harness especially, I've seen and I've done some heavier weights on there, and that's fine. That's one area of my body I'd rather slow down the movement, so it's super controlled, and just find a way to make a lighter weight feel heavier. So that's what I would recommend: 2 to 3 days a week, 2 to 3 sets of 10 to 20 reps, and let your body kind of get used to it. The other thing I would have you do is maybe twice a week, lay on a bench on your back and hang your head off of the bench, and place a towel or a t-shirt or some kind of fabric on your head, and put a plate on your forehead. And again, you're going to do the opposite. You can do a neck flexion exercise. So you arch your head all the way back, bring your chin all the way to your chest again. And again, start very light. That's one of the major things that we do at London to cut down on concussions and any kind of trauma to the neck. I think that's made a huge difference. I know it has in our concussions at London. So, you can eventually work up to some kind of heavier reps, so to speak, or total reps on the neck, but just be wary, because man, that first week or so, you're going to have a horrible time sleeping, and your head's going to be sagging down, and you're going to feel like crap. So, but as always, Broken Tree, Slayer does rule. I just heard Kerry King's new song. I think it's called Idle Hands. And as everyone probably had in their heart, they were hoping that it was going to be very good. And they were hoping, dear God, it just wasn't going to be horrible. And I will say this, that song fucking rips. I think Bostaph is on drums, and I'm a huge fan of Dave Lombardo, but man, do I love Paul Bostaph too. So it sounds great. And I think the song is really well written, not just the riffs and not just the lyrics. I think they do a great job. So if you haven't heard Kerry King, his new song, Idle Hands, I was super impressed, and it's awesome to see one of the OG guys still ripping, man, and still doing it the way it should be done. All right. Let's see here. Samuel Jones says, so after my powerlifting meet, should I take time off? I know Dave Tate has said that he tells people no holding barbells on your back for 4 weeks. Do you agree? I guess that kind of all depends on where you are in your powerlifting life and where you are in your training life. If you're fairly new, you could probably get back to a barbell pretty soon. If you're fairly advanced and you hit a huge meet, I think you need to take some time off. One of the weird things was a lot of times guys would come back after a meet and hit huge PRs the first 2 weeks. But the problem is sometimes these guys, after doing that, they get hurt. And so that you're walking a fine line. But generally speaking, I think you can probably take at least 1 week off, and then the next 2 or 3 weeks, I wouldn't be doing anything crazy. I mean, you can still squat, but I probably wouldn't go anything over 60 or 70% for 2 to 3 reps, 3 sets of 2 to 3. So I would back off. I would back off, especially on the barbell stuff, and, increase your assistance, do stuff that you really didn't ever do. One of the things that Dave and I loved to do when we were on the road was find a regular gym, and we would just do every single machine in there. And we had a blast doing that, because half the time I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and you never know where to load, and you're just kind of tugging on stuff and you feel like an idiot. So I think I think Dave is right in that. I don't know if you need to do 4 weeks, but at least the next 2 weeks, if you're going to do anything, keep the the volume and intensity very low on the barbell stuff, and then go ahead and have fun on the assistants and have a good time. So there you go. All right, Mr. Buckets. That's an interesting name. I hope your mama and papa Buckets are doing well. You think Vin Diesel's parents are called Jane and John Diesel? I don't think so. All right, Mr. Bucket says, I know that's not his real name, people. Says, Jim, I just want to say thanks for all the knowledge you have given back to the world. I appreciate that, Mr. Buckets. He goes on to talk about the T Nation articles and the 531 books and also this. Well, I appreciate it. I love being able to do this. This is a dream come true. I think you've probably heard this story. I'm not talking to you directly, Mr. Buckets, but just everyone. When I was in my first apartment at the University of Arizona, I remember because I didn't have any furniture. I slept on the ground, and I had my buddy lent me like a 19-inch TV I put on a milk crate. That was what I got. And we got free cable at that apartment, so I was pretty pumped up that I got to watch cable because I never had cable before. Anyway, when I was there, I don't know, it was obviously at night. It was after practice. I wrote down the things that I wanted to do in my life. And the first one was to work from home, which I was able to do. The second thing is I wanted to write for a living. I really loved doing that stuff. And the third thing was do something in regards to training. And I remember looking at that, and I remember thinking to myself, like, how the hell am I supposed to get any of this? And then I just remembered, and it has stuck with me for the rest of my life. My dad always said, you know, if you have a goal, the most important thing is that you make progress towards that goal by just doing the right thing, whatever that would be, and working diligently and working consistently. So, for example, I didn't know how I was going to be able to do all those things, but I know that part of that process to get there is to graduate college, to make sure I get my homework in, to make sure I'm training consistently. I'm still learning, to make sure I'm listening to my coaches when they talk about whether it be football or training, listen to my teachers, make sure that I'm going to bed on time, make sure I'm eating, all this stuff. And that's kind of how that process works. So I didn't really work towards any of these things directly, but I still remember that piece of paper was in one of those, I tore it out of one of those daily planner things that you always have a good, like you think you're going to use it and I never used it. But I remember I tore that out and I wrote those things on there. So anyway, I am very excited to be able to do this. So, okay. Oh, one other thing. This is from Broken Tree Music. Any word on when the store is going to get the Roman numeral 531 black shirts back in stock in the 2XL sizes? Broken Tree, I do not know. Is my babe, are you here? All right, my wife would know that better than I would. So I don't know. And as everyone knows, you know, it's been tough getting stuff. You know, the economy, it's just crazy getting stuff. So I apologize, but Broken Tree, I do not know. And you can maybe, if you want, you can email jimwendler.com. Oh my God, I can't even remember what the email was. Boy, am I horribly unprepared for this. I'll think of it later, but you can find the email on the website that will go directly to Juliet, and she can probably answer your question. Boy, I can't remember. Oh, boy, my brain. All right. As long as I can just answer training stuff, I'll be pretty happy. Again, Josh Hayes is asking about the 531 fitted hat, the blue one. Again, my wife would know that way better. So, Josh, I apologize that I don't know those things. So, again, email the site. Man, I wish I could figure out that email. Oh, my God, I can't believe it. I'm so embarrassed right now. Anyway, all right, here we go. Andrew Leshin says, I just want to say thanks for all the content over the years. Well, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it. And he goes on and asks, do you push your Prowler on the street at home? And how have the skid plates held up? Do I push my Prowler on the street at home? Yes. Pretty much, yeah. I don't think I've ever pushed it in this specific Prowler anywhere else than on the street. The skid plates have held up incredibly well. I've only had to replace them once in 20 years. And I push the Prowler a lot, and my wife pushes the Prowler a lot, and my kid pushes the Prowler, and we've had other, athletes come in here and push the Prowler. So yes, it's held up very well. Just one replacement, so it's been awesome. So huge, man, I love the Prowler. And don't freak out about replacing the skids because it's super cheap, it's super easy, and the Prowler is just an awesome piece of equipment. I love it. And so, Broken Tree Music asks or comments again on the Kerry King song. They're now touring, or going to tour with Lamb of God. The singer is from Death Angel. I saw that, and the bassist is from Hell Yeah. They're in your area in August, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, that's awesome. I appreciate it. Juan Zambado asks, hey, Jim, I've been on 531 for over a decade. Wow. I just turned 44 last week. I feel pretty good, and I'm still getting PRs. Thank you very much. You have done more than you know for me. Well, I appreciate that, Juan. Do you have any thoughts on Fifth Set by Swede-Burns? You know what? I don't know anything. I know they've had a tremendous amount of success. I've never read the book, and that's kind of on me. Ever since I got involved with London and stuff, some of that advanced training stuff, or just I haven't been able to keep up with it since everything I've been doing is kind of for the regular Joe. So I don't have any thoughts, but I know he's a very intelligent and experienced lifter, and I doubt that they've had this kind of success with something that's stupid. So I would give it a rip, man. If you can understand it, like understand what the overall global vision of that training or any training is, whether it's conjugate or 531 or fifth set, if you can understand kind of what they're really going for, the overarching idea, and then not only that, but if you believe in what you're doing, like you fucking want to do it, man. Like it's like if you didn't do it, you'd die kind of feeling. I don't mean that literally. But if it's driving you and it gets you in the weight room and it allows you to train with that love and appreciation and intensity and all that other good shit, man, I would go ahead and do it. And I'm a big fan of people training with different means, different ways. If I never had a chance to train differently and try different stuff out, you never really evolve as a coach, as a lifter, and all that stuff. So, Juan, if it's something you you want to try, man, I'd go ahead and do it. Definitely. All right, here we go. Albinson asks, is supersetting the supplemental with assistance always okay, both in leaders and anchors? So the general answer to this is it, we don't have a lot of questions here, so if anyone has these questions, go ahead and rip them off. Is it always okay? I would say, Albinson, that no, it's not always okay. There's some instances, and this has more to do with the lifter and his readiness and preparedness. For example, if I get someone who is very out of shape, and I don't know if I would superset some of that stuff because their form would be severely compromised on the supplemental, which is usually heavier, involves a more complex movement. So the answer is no, it's not. Sometimes it's not. But if you're in fairly good shape and your readiness and preparedness for that day is awesome, there's nothing wrong with it. So again, there's really no black and white answers in training. There's a lot of it depends. And, the best way to put it is for example, if you're going to use a West Side Barbell inspired template, does it work? Well, hell yes, it works. But I would never put an 8th grade kid who has no training experience. I would never ask him to max out on a 2-board press if he doesn't even know how to do a push-up. Okay. But again, that exact same workout would be perfect for someone else. So just so you understand, that's the extremes, and I think everyone kind of understands that. So just understand, like it really comes down to your preparedness and your readiness on that day. So your preparedness is kind of like the global thing, like how long you've been training, what kind of general GPP you have, all that stuff. And then your readiness is how you feel for that day. So if you're feeling good and stuff like that, then usually you can attempt more stuff or whatever I'm going to say. And some days you just have to pull back. So preparedness is kind of like your past, and your readiness is the present. So there you go. Heavyweight says, I am currently at work. Just wanted to stop by to say happy early birthday. Well, thank you. My birthday is coming up. Hope you have a hell of a time. Well, my birthday gift to my son, from my wife this year is I'm going to fly out to see my son, Mason. He's in Arkansas right now going to school. And so I'm going to spend a four-day weekend, I guess, with him. And so that's kind of what I asked for. I just want to hang out with Mason. And if I don't think Mason's watching right now, he's got stuff going on. Anyway, so thank you, Heavyweight. I appreciate it. Andrew says, hey, with how poor general health is nowadays, what do you feel are some basics that men should be able to do? Example, so many push-ups, run so far, etc. Now, this is something that's tough to do because everyone is going to be starting at a different place. And so you're going to have some people that, have trained through most of their life, or at least have some kind of training or sports background. And then you're going to have some people who, when they turn 35 and 40, have never done anything. And they're going to be very far behind the eight ball, so to speak. Okay. So you're going to have a lot of different variations in there. The most important thing, I would say, is especially for the guys who haven't really done that much, is, man, make sure you are consistent. I think that's much more important, and make sure that you are improving. Okay. Now, when you say consistent, I also think you need to be consistently training with excitement, with some gusto, with some intensity, all that other stuff. I think that's important. But I don't know if I can really put some basics, because I never want to shit on someone who maybe has done absolutely nothing, is 100 pounds overweight, and maybe him doing 5 push-ups is the greatest thing in the world. And then I say something like, you should be able to do 50 push-ups with a 50-pound vest. And now it belittles kind of what he has done and how much work went into that stuff. So, but as always, I would say the basics that men should be able to do. I think you should be able to be consistent in your training. I think you should be consistent with your attitude and your character, and that obviously outside of training. I also think you should be driven to do not just fitness stuff, but whatever your service is to the world and to your family. And I think once you do that, wherever you go on that scale of whether you're doing 100 push-ups at once or 5 push-ups, I think that would be the standards, if I'm going to be completely honest. And as always, guys, I should make sure your training has some kind of general conditioning in there. Doesn't have to be crazy, or can be crazy. Has some kind of resistance or muscle building, strength training. Again, that could be lifting heavy barbells. That might be wearing the weight vest. It might be kettlebells or whatever. And make sure you have some kind of mobility or flexibility stuff. Again, doesn't have to be like you're doing yoga for 4 hours a day. So those 3 things should be in your program, and just keep fucking going and keep being an example to the world. Okay. Get off my soapbox. Okay, Doug Gibson says the 49ers have a great fullback wearing number 44. Yeah, he is amazing. He's been around forever too, man. It's unbelievable how good he's been for as long. Says the Kerry King song is killer. Yes, it was. Neurosis live was amazing. He says he saw them at a festival along with Sleep, Ohm, High on Fire. Good stuff. Now the question. Okay, I need to add more upper back and hip adductor training. Any recommendations other than face pulls and pull apars for the upper and Copenhagen planks for the lower? Now, I don't know much about doing the hip adductor stuff since I never had to tackle that at all. But with the upper back, the one thing that I'm a huge fan of is doing some kind of rowing or pulling movement. So, for example, when I did a lot of my chest supported rows with the hammer strength, I would lower the seat. So I'm pulling very high, almost to my chin, around that area with my elbows high. I also would row a dumbbell very similar to that. So I just wouldn't do dumbbell rows for my lats. I would pull them up high. I think, to me, those did more for my upper back than face pulls and band pull aparts. Those are kind of like the tricep extensions for the upper back. I think the rowing and doing the high elbow row is much, much, much more important. And obviously the other thing would be the more specific stuff. I would probably say hang cleans, absolutely the best trap exercise. I don't really know if you would call that exactly upper back, but if you can do hang cleans or hang clean high pulls, about up to your neck and stuff like that, I think that's great. The other thing is, if you have a trap bar, you want to pick up the trap bar and row it as high as you can, which is not going to be terribly high with your elbows high. But that's another thing that I think is awesome. And I think even my shoulder's torn to poop, and I can still do that exercise, and it's an amazing exercise. So that's another thing I would highly recommend. With the hip adductor, I got no idea, brother. All right. What's your preferred way to add weight to the 45-degree back raise? The plates or dumbbells behind the head, the barbell held in front, double overhand. Thank you. My favorite way of doing it is putting a barbell on my back, but I rest it almost on my neck because it's going to end up there anyway when you go all the way down. So I've done the 45-degree back raise as like a deadlift. I think that's awesome too, but I think you should use both those. I also think you should be able to do body weight stuff for high reps and body weight very slow and controlled with static holds at the top for 10 to 15 seconds. Stuff like that I think is super important. So I don't know if there's really a preferred way. I think you should be able to do all ways. But I'm a huge fan, again, putting the barbell on the back. And I think I mostly used a buffalo bar because it was a little easier on my shoulders. But if you don't have any shoulder issues, you can obviously just use a regular bar. And again, I would place it very high up on the back, almost on the neck. And since the weight's not that heavy, it's not a big deal. Okay, Ian says, hey, Jim, I'm a big fan. He's from the UK. Is it okay to use the base 5-3 template each day if someone wants to focus more on conditioning? That is, I don't know what you're actually asking, Ian. But yes, you can use the basic. Okay, so I see each day. So each training day. You're not going to do it every single day. Okay. All right. Yes. Yes, you can do it. Just make sure your training max, if I was you, 75 to 80% if conditioning is going to be. And then I would also have standards. So, for example, like, listen, on my 5-3-1 week, if I'm not getting 8 reps, you have to find the number. Each lift is going to be different. If I'm not getting 8 awesome reps that are 100% up to standards, I am going to repeat that training max or back up a little bit. So you have some parameters in there and some standards that allow you to adjust and be smart, since the most important thing, as you say, their focus is on conditioning. So, and your body is going to eventually adapt and you'll be fine. So, Dan B says, hey, Jim, I'm just coming off COVID and I had 2 weeks of feeling like ass. Okay. How do you recommend starting back based on your experience? I love the channel. This is what I would generally do is my first 2 to 3 weeks. Again, it depends on how you're doing it. I would do the main lift, but stick with no heavier than your first set last, coming off whatever your cycle was. It doesn't have to be exact. So if your first set last is always between, for example, 135 and 155, I would start working up and maybe hit 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps with the FSL weight, no heavier, and then start building up your work capacity and your general fitness with some kind of assistance circuit. And I would probably recommend 3 exercises. Again, upper body pull, upper body push, and something for your lower body or abs done in a circuit. For example, dumbbell bench, lat pull downs, and body weight squats, or some kind of ab work. So you do those in a circuit. I'd recommend 3 to 5 sets of each. Again, the rest doesn't have to be, you don't have to just run back and forth. Just go to, I don't want you dying during this. So don't turn this into a massive conditioning circuit, but just maintain a good pace that you're able to do all the reps perfectly and that you're not completely run out. And I would also, then after you do that, I would recommend that 3 to 4 days a week, 1 main lift a day. I would recommend some kind of easy conditioning. For example, you can go ride a bike. You could obviously walk on a treadmill on an incline. You could do a weight vest walk. Again, maybe 20 to 30 minutes at the very most. And I would do that until you felt like you were kind of back in the swing of things, and I would start right where you left off. Okay. Oh, Ian says, sorry, I mean each training day, rest days are safe. Okay. So Ian, the guy from the UK, yes. Okay. We're good to go, buddy. All right. Helmut asks, Helmut, how you doing? What word do you use in place of the F word, fuck, in front of your kids? Thank you very much for everything. I appreciate you. I don't know. I never really thought about that. So I'm sure I'd probably say some bad words in front of the kids. But I don't, I guess I try not to say it, but I don't know. So I don't know. I never really thought about that, Helmut. I'm sorry. I just kind of let it rip, and sometimes I screw up and I apologize, but I just try not to say it. So, all right. Kimball Jensen says, what do you think of your football players doing additional train outside the program that you've got for them, speed or weights with another coach? That's their, if they want to do that, more power to them. I'm probably not a huge fan. I hope at least that they would say something and let me know. Usually you can see that in the performance. But the one thing I've learned, Kimball, in my life is I can't control what other things, like that's something I can't control. So I just let it go. We've had a couple instances early on, a couple kids doing some stuff, and I told the head coach, the kid, was going to have to change. It's one of those things. Either he can't come in because I don't know exactly what he's doing. This is like specific hard training that he was doing. So he just had to make a decision. I know some of the kids go over to the gym and get some additional bench press in or whatever, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'd rather have that problem that the kids go and they will go out and train together, and they're not actually going to another coach. So it just depends on where they're going, man. So I think that's more of a head coach issue than it is a strength coach issue, if that makes sense. That needs to be addressed by the big man. Other than your own experiences and work, who or where do you currently feel you learn the most from? I don't know. Like, I don't know where else you can learn, real learn stuff. I mean, obviously talk to other coaches, some of my friends and stuff. We bounce ideas. So yeah, it would probably be my friends and stuff like that. But man, I can't tell you how much more you will learn if you go out and actually do the activity. It's amazing that if you play the guitar, not read about the guitar, you actually get better at the guitar. So I would say 99.99999% of what I've learned is from myself training and training others. So I don't think you can put a price on that at all. I mean, it's even when I first started training the kids at London, you're always at a certain points in your life, like, well, what else can I learn? And then I look back now, it's been, 8 or 9 off seasons now. And I'm like, holy shit, was I stupid back then? And just even this year, I've learned so much in the off season, little things here and there. And it's just amazing. And every year you're going to have new challenges and stuff. So I don't think I guess what you're asking is I have a couple guys that I go to that I bounce ideas off of. And, one of my best friends is Matt Rhodes, and I talk to him all the time, and we always just talk it out with each other. And sometimes you just need to talk it out and then realize you're an idiot. So there you go. All right. What's Dave like before and after the podcast? Really enjoy listening while you're on with Matt and Vinny. I think, okay, so what's Dave Tate like? Dave Tate is Dave Tate. I've known Dave for 25 years or so, something like that. And so Dave is Dave. I don't know how else to, describe it. I mean, I've known 99% of Dave and I's, interaction is always off camera. So I don't know how else to describe it, but listen, Dave's a great dude, and I love him to death. And it's been awesome having him in my corner helping me out over the years. It's been absolutely amazing. So I owe a ton to Dave. But asking me like what he was before and after the podcast, Dave's not phony on the podcast or anything like that, but it's just a little more formal. But obviously when we come off the podcast, it's just two dudes bullshitting and making fun of each other and making fun of every situation and complaining and enjoying each other. So I guess just imagine one of your best friends and then you trying to do an interview and then turning off the camera and then your best friend, you guys talk like normal. So, all right. Phil says, hey, good morning, Jim. Thank you for doing these. Well, thank you, Phil, for being part of it. They have kept my training grounded and added an immense amount of education to my training toolbox. Do you prefer gap or zone blocking? You know what? I don't know. I think we do gap at London. The one thing I think the most important thing is for the kids, I think, is, and this goes for basically any sport, you have to make it as simple as possible and make the rules very simple. So if you got a guy in your gap, you do this. If you have a guy outside the gap, you do that, and that's it. I think when you start giving the kids too many options and too much, how do I say this? Just too many variables, I think it screws them up. So, again, I'm not exactly sure how we do all that stuff based on each play. But the one thing I know is I tell this to Kyle all the time is try to make the job so easy to know and understand, and any rules are just pretty much A or B. And that way the kids don't have to think too much, because the last thing you want your kids is going up on that line, looking across and then being like, holy shit, what am I doing? Rather than just saying, listen, I'm just going right, buddy. Again, that would be like zone blocking, or, hey, I got a guy on top, head up. I'm just hitting him right now. We'll be good to go. So, but keep things as simple and as black and white as possible. Things end up doing. Okay. Rick says, hey, Jim, what do you recommend for speed training? Again, I should probably point this out. We don't do a lot of what you would see on YouTube as speed training, mostly because most of our kids don't need it. What we recommend for speed training is when we put muscle on the kids, which is huge. We get the kids stronger, which is huge. We do a boatload of jumping, and we also raise their general physical preparedness to a very high level. And we've been doing that for 8 or 9 off seasons, however long I've been doing it, with very little direct speed training, and our kids always get faster. So just in general, we just raise their general physical preparedness. And again, our kids aren't going off to Ohio State. They're not running a 4.3 40. Our kids are just average kids. And that's what I would recommend, is raise their GPP to a higher level. And as I always like to say, we always try to raise the floor, not the ceiling. When you understand that, understand how to train that, it's good times. YouTube Van says, hey, Jim, any thoughts on doing the assistance exercise as supersets? Yes, we superset a lot of our assistants. That's fine. Good to go, buddy. Or you can do it however you want. So he's okay. So yeah, you're fine with that. We do that all the time. AB says, hey, Jim, what does your own typical training week look like nowadays? As a 100% walrus dude myself, my issue is knowing whether I've done enough or too much with this style of training. Any advice? Well, it kind of depends on the time of year, and it depends on what your goals are. So, but I always, like, all I'm doing today is some mobility stuff and some stretching, very easy stuff. But generally, I switch between kind of a conditioning thing on one day to a walrus style strength training. So as an example, I will, on my conditioning day, twice this week, I went over to the stadium and climbed stadium stairs. So that would be like my conditioning. Or I've done the Prowler this week. You can obviously take a weight vest walk, and then I alternate that with more strength stuff. So, you know, squats, push-ups, chin-ups, and stuff like that. And so that, it's hard to know. Again, I'm still figuring this stuff out. So, but I've also done all walrus style training for months, every single day. And I don't think you need to worry about doing enough. You have to kind of get out of that no pain, no gain thing. You have to worry about doing things correctly. And as long as you're consistent, some of those days might not be amazing. But I always have a bare minimum. I always tell people this is have a base workout that if you don't know what to do, this is what you're doing. For example, for me, it was always the 150 squats, 100 push-ups, and 50 pull-ups. That was the base standard. So if I didn't know what to do, that's what I did. And some days I would do a little more if I was feeling good. Some days I do an additional workout. Obviously, that was really big with me. And then, so I would ask you to have a daily non-negotiable minimum. So if you don't know what to do, you can do that. Or you can do something like I'm doing. So you're just alternating between strength work and conditioning work. Like one of the strength works today, this week was I pulled the rope that's attached to the sled. I did that, and that was my strength work. So I've been using a lot more variety these days just because I want to do it. And it's been very nice during this winter time. So it's nice to get out there where it's not, full of snow and ice. And it's also nice not to be out there when it's, 95 degrees and 85% humidity. So my advice is be consistent and have a non-negotiable bare minimum and have a plethora of different workouts. For example, my son, who does a lot of this stuff, Mason, we go through and we just start listing different training days, things that he can do and that he basically chooses based on what his readiness is for that day. So there you go. I've recently injured my back and hips. This is from Ralkin, so that I can't squat heavy until I've sorted this out. Totally understand. However, the gym has a thing called the perfect squat machine that I can do without issues. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. I am not. But my question is, if you think it's viable to swap out the squats for that exercise in 5-3-1 until my hips are back in order, I think that's a great idea. I think you should train that with higher reps. Like an assistance exercise, you can still do that in place of the squat, but I don't think you need to be maxing out with that. So I think first couple workouts, man, just kind of get your bearings a little bit, figure out where you want to be, how your body responds, then you can choose to go a little bit heavier or do more reps. So start light, but progress slow as always, and I think you'll be fine. So Kimball Jensen says, thanks for all you do. I appreciate that. He just did, Kimball. He subscribed to the JimWendler.com forum and have already gotten a ton of value. Well, that's awesome, Kimball. Again, the JimWendler.com forum. Man, have we really built that thing up. And I'm super proud of the community that we built there. So if you're familiar, if you want to be part of a community there's no political or any kind of that bullshit discussion, it's just training, and you get a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds helping each other out. So it's been awesome. So Andrew Leshin says, do you use Merrick Health? No, I do not. It's not because I don't like them or anything like that. I just don't. Dan B says, do you use power cleans while training your players? No. Also, what are your favorite exercises for training young contact sport athletes? We do some kind of lower body work, some kind of upper body push, and some kind of upper body pull. What those are will depend greatly on, if he's a 10-year-old like James, we do different stuff, or if he's a college athlete. So, but generally so you have to understand, like, it depends on who the person is and where they are. So just so you understand that this is not, if your kid's 12 years old and has no training experience, or 10 years old, probably shouldn't be using a lot of this stuff. So, but for our high school football players, our main exercises are the barbell squat, the bench press, and the trap bar. And then we use a ton of different assistance work. Obviously, the most, any kind of dumbbell work, dumbbell squats. We use the devil's press, any kind of dumbbell pressing, dumbbell rows, tons of pull-ups and chin-ups, push-ups, dips, a ton of jumping, overhead press, barbell curls. So it's nothing terribly fancy. We just do things consistently, and we try to do things very well. So whatever exercises you choose, make sure you do them correctly, and make sure the loading is correct too. That's the number one thing I think I see with people, athletes or not, is magically they get worse when the loading is not correct. So there you go. All right, it's about 5 minutes here. So Chloe says, hey, Jim, I am a late 20s woman who started 5-through-1 full body, and I want to say I'm grateful for all the work you've done. Here's to yours more, plus Gorgoroth or 6. Oh, Chloe. It's weird because with Gorgoroth, I love their early stuff, but and that's all in Furnace, obviously, writing all the music. But man, there's still something about, oh my God, what's the name? God, I can't remember anything. Anyway, it was the last album, I believe, that had Gaul and King and Infernus on there. It's got this wound upon wound. And anyway, I still think that's a great album, even though it's kind of shiny, produced nicely, and it's not Infernus, so to speak. But man, I'm a big fan of Gorgoroth. All right, let's see here. Do supersets have to be super? Can they be okay sets? Just trying to win the hyper trophy. Very funny. Very funny. And Chloe then goes on and says, Gaul was totally the best vocalist for the record. Man, I'll tell you, there is a live video, a concert of, I think it was, man, it was a festival. I think the YouTube is Gorgoroth/Godseed. And it had Tellock from Mayhem playing guitar. And, King of Hell was playing bass. And I think one of the guys from Dimmu was playing guitar too. So it was kind of a patched band. And, but my God, was that the live sound, man, it was one of those festivals. I think the one in Germany, but I can't remember what that is. Man, my memory stinks today. But anyway, if you can find that on YouTube, I would highly recommend it. I think it says Gorgoroth/Godseed Live. And I think it's probably one of the last times that they've played under the Gorgoroth name before, all the shenanigans started with the copyright. And I think rightfully so, Infernus won. Not like anyone here cares. Anyway, Con Vados says, are you natural? Not when I was powerlifting, but I don't take anything now. So good times. I'm not sure why that matters, or why it's anyone's business, but there you go. All right, not a question, but asking you to consider a high school strength and conditioning manual. Dad of a high school and middle school athlete. It's crazy how misinformed these coaches are on basic strength conditioning. Mine are still kicking butt through because of 5-3-1. So the one thing that I have a real issue with is, and a lot of high school coaches kind of get the short end of the stick. They get blamed for a lot. but they kind of get thrown into the situation where they're expected to know both the sport and all the training, and they try their best. Okay, that's just the way it is. Expecting them to be great at all this stuff is ridiculous. All right. The next thing you have to understand is when you're training people is much different than coaching a large group. And that's very difficult to get everyone moving in the right direction, and learning how to coach 40 to 50 people at once and being able to look out. Okay. So just understand that. The other thing is writing a book or a manual or whatever, it will tell you what to do, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. And it's been my experience that how you do something is much more important than what you are doing. Obviously, you want to have some common sense for what you're doing, but how you do things is so much more important. And how you do things is 1,000% based on whoever's leading that weight room. And I always say, when people, as an example, people say, hey, when they see what we do at London, they're like, well, this is all you do. It doesn't look very impressive. But we do things consistently, and we do things incredibly well. Okay, incredibly well. So even if I wrote everything down, people wouldn't believe it. And I don't think it really gets the point that there is such a high standard and expectation put on our kids. And I'm not just blowing smoke up my ass, because it's taken a long time to get there. And I would say personally, we'd no higher than 40% of where I think we should be. So we're not even at halfway there. And I still think our kids do a great job, but it just drives me nuts. So I think even if I put out a manual or a book or something, it still doesn't address the real problem with strength and conditioning. And this doesn't just be at the high school level. It has to do with everything. I think there needs to be an emphasis on doing things correctly. And you can talk a good game as a coach or put it in a manual, but until you're in the trenches and until you're enforcing that, until you have the respect of the players so that they're getting that shit driven into their head, and the kids, the seniors and juniors are leading by example and put those expectations onto the younger generation. It doesn't matter if we're doing front squats or squats, guys. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're doing 3 reps or 8 reps. I'm sorry, but that's just the nitpick shit that I think people overanalyze instead of doing things correctly. So there you go. Andrew Leshin says, who do you have winning on Sunday? Again, for those watching this not live, it's Super Bowl Sunday's coming up. I don't know. I think the spread is like 1.5 points, but I am massive fan, obviously, as someone who loves running the ball at the 49ers. I think what Brock Purdy has done has been amazing. I am a huge fan of the 49ers defense. I think Fred Warner is the linebacker. He is an absolute fucking savage there. By far, the 2 people that I love watching the most offensively is Deebo Samuels and George Kittle. The first time I saw each of those guys play, I was completely starstruck about how their effort and how they played the game. And so I'm a huge fan of the 49ers. So, and obviously, McCaffrey and I love how they played the game. So that's who I'm rooting for. But again, if they lose, I will not think about it for 1 second after the game is over. I'll be honest. All right, we'll do one more here. Julian says, how long do you usually take to finish one training session of 5-3-1? Well, it would depend on what you're doing, right? So it could take 20 minutes or it could take 60 minutes. It depends on how you're training. And so there's just not one single 5-3-1 workout. I hope you understand that. So it depends on what you're doing that day. It also depends on your training, like your readiness and preparedness. Some people can rip through a workout with absolute perfect technique where every rep looks like you're getting shot out of a cannon. Other people not in very good shape and don't have maybe they just don't have the experience and their GPP is real low. So again, it depends on a lot of stuff. So can't really answer that question, Julian. I'm sorry. All right, last question here. Hulk Smash says, not sure if already been asked, but do you still keep up with college football? Yes, I do. And do you have any teams you still root for? No, I mean, I'd like to see Arizona do well. I think they had a tremendous season, but I don't really keep up with that, if that makes sense. Like, if they're on, I'll watch a little bit. I am a huge fan of the Air Force Academy. I love their offense. So I still keep up with them. And, I watch as much college football as I have time to. I usually record all the games. If there's a game I want to see, and then I just fast forward through a lot of it, or fast forward to the commercials. I never watch a game live. I always wait for about 30 or 40 minutes, and then that way I don't have to watch any of the commercials, because the commercials absolutely drive me nuts. I refuse to watch any commercial. And maybe that just makes me weird. I can't stand it. So, but yeah, I do keep up with college football. I don't really have any teams. I try to watch individual players that I hear are good on whatever side of the ball or whatever position. If I hear something good, I'll try and watch that particular player. And the one thing you never want to do is watch a college football game with me, or any football game, because I will rewind it and point out all the stupid stuff, and I'll get all pumped up when this guy has a great pull block and coming around, or watching the safety come down and fill a hole and tackle a running back 3 yards deep. It's absolutely amazing. That's why when my son Mason is here, or my buddy Matt Rhodes is here, my wife goes nuts, because it takes us forever to get through a game, because we're watching every little play and watching all the little stuff, and that's the things I still enjoy. So, all right, we are ready to go. It is 11:07. I have to take a leak like you wouldn't believe. So remember, guys, the JimWendler.com forum is amazing. I'm super proud of that. So if you want to join, it's a monthly fee. I think it's $5. It's one of the best places I've ever built, or the most impressive thing I ever really built, as far as just having that kind of community. Super proud of that. I hope everyone has an awesome weekend. I hope everyone has a good Super Bowl weekend. Stay sober. Do not drink and drive, guys. And please don't text and drive. Oh, my God. It's horrible. And if possible, do something stupid conditioning-wise, and, challenge yourself. And I will see you next week. And I love you guys, and thank you for participating, all you that ask questions on the chat. Have an awesome day. My cat Bobo is looking at me like I'm a meal right now. So have a great weekend.